I am Chris from One Food Group. I am very excited to be with you all today. Today's webinar is about cybersecurity incidents in the Philippines over the last 3 years. Before we formally start, we are encouraging all viewers to open their cameras if your bandwidth permits, as we are going to take snaps during the session. All right, I know you're all excited to learn, so let's get started. Our speaker for today started out his career as a professor in computer science as the first IT director of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. He has since worked as an IT manager in the United Nations. He then joined the PLDT Group as the Technical Operations Director of Chica, Philippines. It was here that he headed a major initiative under smart communications that allowed for application-based mobile data charging in the country, a breakthrough project that won several international innovation awards. Moving to Globe Telecoms, he served as the director of the Emerging Technologies Department. Under his tenure, the department won Globe's its first Best in Show award of the TM Forum Group in Singapore on their first attempt. The department won several more awards in the international setting, focusing topics on artificial intelligence and machine learning. As an IT security professional by heart, he has served as a chief security architect of iGov, a senior IT consultant of the PCSO, holds several SAN certification, is a consistent finalist in DevCon, a PhD candidate for computer security, and one of the only two certified core trainers in the APAC region. His main focus now is serving as the COO or the Chief Operations Officer in Red Rock Security, a local security services company that aims to showcase the best IT security talents in the country. Let's give it up, no other than Mr. Paul Patrick Pantilla. Paul, the virtual floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So great to see that we have a huge crowd here. I see 126 people. So yeah, just let me share my screen for a bit. Um, there we go. And all right. So while this is loading, I'm just looking forward to the Q&A, everyone. Hi. See some familiar names here. So yeah, basically my talk here is about what we did in terms of incident handling over the past 3 years or so. It's specifically 3 years because really, guys, the pandemic changed everything. I can't underestimate that enough. So this is not a useful talk that I give. The things that are in this talk are a bit more sensitive than usual. And I kind of, to share to you guys, it's a bit, it has a bit of a personal insight uh, injected into this into what I want to share with you guys, because for most of the incidents I work as a lead or part of the leads of the entire incident response, and that includes whether it consists of local companies, foreign companies. The usual case is that the bigger the incident, the more companies are joined together in a very stressful situation where you're trying to beat the clock. So I feel that sharing those insights, guys, sharing the learnings is really nice because I want people to know about these insights without actually having to go through that experience, if you guys get what I mean. All right? Okay. So basically I do want to give a bit of background as to what our company is. So pretty short, but I just want to set that context. The company that I'm in, Red Rock Security, we have a lot of senior people with over 20 years. We did not just start in Red Rock. My first job, for example, was the IT director of UP Los Baños. And then I worked with my colleague, Mr. Raymond Nunez. We were the head security architects for the largest government IT infrastructure projects. We tried to take that with us, but we're always teachers by heart. We're the only two certified trainees for core security. That's like the most advanced penetration testing solution in the world. At least we're the only two in the Asia Pacific region. And before security was cool, we loved joining the world's largest hacking conference, which is DevCon. The only Filipino winners are still with us as well. So that kind of made us decide, all right, but how can we translate this into something that helps people, right? I'm a nerd at heart, guys, but even nerds can find their calling on how to contribute to society, right? So here's the thing that led us to why we do incident response. A bit of a background on why this is a huge deal. Think about this. In 2021, the Philippines was ranked as the most targeted countries in the world for ransomware. So this is from a state of the ransomware report, I think from Sophos. Here, I believe, I don't want to count this again, but I believe we're on 13th place, I think. Um, at almost 70% of organizations surveyed by this renowned security group. Almost 70% have been hit by some sort of ransomware. So that was 2021, guys. When it reached 2022, we actually graduated into second place. Okay, this is another study, to be fair, but it definitely grew since 2021. I'm going to get to that in a bit. Why did we grow from, let's say, 13th or lower two digits place up to second? Or at least we definitely were attacked more. I'll get to that in a bit. But definitely that has impacted our organizations. You could see here on at least these first two rows, uh, as the years go by, 2020 to 2021, uh, the country spends more and more in in cost to rectify attacks or to recover from attacks. Okay, so these are things that uh, us Red Rock see firsthand. And you may be asking, why has it been rising over time? Why are we being attacked more and more over time? That's because of this. In 2021, to be blunt, we were the third biggest payer for ransom. All right. So not only are we like the 13th most attacked in the world in terms of ransomware, but we end up actually paying the ransomware provider. All right. Now, these ransomware providers, they are very business-like. For those who are not familiar, ransomware is making all the computers, as much computers as possible, as much servers as possible, unusable for the company. But if you pay a ransom, they will give you a decryptor that can make it all usable again. So that's why it's called ransomware. Now, their sites, if you go to their sites in the dark web, they're very professional. They have a support system. You could file a help desk ticket if you have trouble paying via Bitcoin. They have online chat support. So ganun sila ka professional, so to speak. And if you do pay the ransom, they will honor their word. They have to, because once word comes out that, oh, I paid ransom to these guys, but they didn't help us. Uh, they didn't give us back our data, or they still release the data anyway. If word comes out that they don't honor their word, they're not going to be paid in the future. So the Philippines, well, you know, in these cases, most companies, I imagine, wanted their systems to work again right away. So they end up paying the ransom. The problem was that just encouraged attackers all around the world to target us even more. Okay, so that's the situation we're in right now. And you could see that, guys. You could see that we are being attacked. I'm pretty sure that people here have heard about the PhilHealth incident. So the group that attacked PhilHealth is called Medusa. They're Russian based, and this was published in their dark website. They also have a big dump that was shared via Telegram. This is part of that dump. So I'm not sure if you could see on the screen, but it does compose of a lot of JPEG files, PDF files. In fact, I haven't checked in the last 12 hours, but what they're doing in the dark website is drip feeding what they have. And this is among the latest that I've seen. So it includes PDF documents with scanned government IDs. You could see here there's a driver's license, there's PhilHealth license. It's pretty bad. So you could assume that there's a lot of these very sensitive PII. And it's not just PhilHealth. This one we reported right away to the PSA when we saw this. Uh, because we do a lot of threat intelligence specifically for the Philippines. So we alerted the PSA for this. Uh, we don't have a formal arrangement yet with these guys, but we typically help people out, people there in these government institutions a lot because they know us personally. So um, and it goes on and on. So as a result of all of that, right now I would say the average in cybersecurity incidents that we work on for major companies, that would be three. So that's, to be clear, we work on three major cybersecurity incidents at any given time on average. So that's a lot. Um, we always look at the dark web. Here you could see an example of what a ransomware group portal looks like. In this case, um, the ransomware group is called Lockbit, and it constantly shows their latest victims. And usually you could see here, I'm not sure if it's clear, but there's a timer showing when they will release that data to the public. Okay, so that's those are we track those groups, and yes, there are a lot of Philippine companies here compared to a few years ago. In fact, prior to the pandemic, we usually would work on one major incident at any given time, and only now, well, when it started, it immediately jumped to three. In fact, our record is we worked on five simultaneously at any given time. That was tough for my sleeping schedule, but that also involved one of the biggest IRs we ever attended to. Basically, it was nationwide critical infrastructure. I was the main lead for that. We were working with multiple on-premise and global response teams simultaneously. I'll talk about that in a bit later in this talk now. Um, and we have experienced all sort of things, big, small, insider jobs, direct threats from ransomware groups, the most efficient and mind-blowing phishing attacks I've ever seen. We've experienced that in the past 3 years. So that's why I hope to share some of those insights to you. You don't have to experience these, but I want to share their learnings on these. And full disclosure, I'm not a marketing or salesperson, guy. I'm coming from the perspective of someone working on the ground. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but what I'd like you to know is everything here is genuine. Everything here comes firsthand. All right. So hope we have a great. I think we have around 20 minutes. I think that should cover it. Okay. So first thing I want to talk about as notable highlights is the very incredible phishing attempt that we noticed around the start of the pandemic. So what happened here, guys, was let's call the company finance.com.ph. I've given this story a few times, so maybe some people have heard of it, but it's too good to pass up. So, company, Philippine insurance company, let's call it finance.com.ph. The way attackers hack or try to send phishing to high targets like these guys is they don't try to fish them directly. No, they will research who are this person's friends, who are this person's relatives, who does he talk to in Facebook, in LinkedIn. Those are the people I want to hack first. So the phishing email will not come from the attacker. It will come from an attacker's friend or contact whose email address has been hacked. And that's what happened. What happened was the phishing attack came from a compromised email who the CFO knew. So once he clicked on the link, I won't go through the details here, the email address of the inbox of this CFO was compromised. The first thing they did, the attacker group, was they searched through the entire inbox of the CFO. They tried to find out what are the conversations here that involve making a deal. And then they found one. They found a deal where the CFO was having a transaction with a group of vendors. Let's call that group localvendor.com. Okay? So there's this big thread talking to, let's say, a John, Mary, Paul, Eric at localvendor.com. The attackers, they then created a localvendor.com domain, but the second L, they changed it into a one. Okay, so they registered a new domain. And then they created addresses under this new domain. They called it John, Mary, Paul, and Eric as well. And then they inserted those impostor email addresses into the thread. So they took out the real John, Mary, Paul, and Eric at localvendor.com. They inserted themselves, but John at loca1vendor.com, Mary at loca1vendor.com. And ang galing, they really copied the writing style of the real people. They really put the context, they copied the signature. So the CFO, he's not gonna notice that he's not anymore talking to the real John at local1vendor.com. So they carry that on for a few days. Now, in the meantime, they put forwarding rules into the inbox of the CFO. If you guys are not familiar with forwarding rules, it's putting rules into your inbox such that if you receive an email, you automatically forward it. Or if you receive an email, you automatically delete it. They put such rules so that they have a copy of all the emails of the CFO at real time, and they monitored it 24/7. So some security emails came in, they would just delete those security emails. Or if a security email would say, please change your password, they would modify it. Okay. They would take advantage of that and still be aware of the new password of the CFO. So that conversation covered a transaction sum, and ultimately 40 million pesos was transferred to a bank account owned by the attackers. That was such a huge blow to this company. And what I want to stress here was the speed that they did everything. The speed because when we did forensics, we saw all the timestamps of all of these. When they created these rules, it was very, very fast. Obviously, they did this several times before. Okay, so let's move on. Now, in this case, the second example I want to give was basically Russia, this Russian threat actor, they contacted an insider to say, click on this link, we will pay you something. And that's all you have to do. So guys, you cannot underestimate the allure of 10,000. If you're receiving a salary of 20,000 pesos and some guy tells you, I'm going to give you 50,000 pesos, just click this link. Oh, you will click that link. So that's basically what happened. And that gave them a footprint inside the organization, the Russians, and they ultimately compromised all the main HQ and all branches. So this is a large, okay, I could give it away, I guess, retail chain all across the Philippines. All right. So when we were helping them, so we were basically helping them contain, try to recover services, try to shut out the Russians. The insider gave updates to the Russians. We did everything in complete secrecy. When we were in the client premises, we made sure there were no CCTV cameras, and yet the Russians knew who we were. They sent us this email, these Russians. So happy holidays, Red Rock team. We offer your team 5 million pesos of crypto if you bring this client into negotiation with us. So don't get fooled by this company. They don't care anything but profit. They don't even care that their 1.6 million members' data are going to be leaked. You know we have this data, Red Rock. So don't let your reputation be tarnished. No one can help them avoid this. We will never stop attacking. Even if they put a lot of millions of dollars, we will do it all again. So we looked at this email and we replied to them, make it 10 million pesos. No, no, joke lang. I'm just kidding. So we 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 ignored this. What we did afterwards was we double checked all our Red Rock security emails. Does everyone use YubiKey? Are everyone using YubiKey? If you're not familiar with YubiKey, that's the physical OTP generator. You're almost unfishable for credentials if you use that. Made sure everyone did that, and we contacted the client immediately. What did the client say? The client said, Red Rock, they've been telling us that you, Red Rock, are on their side all the while. They were scaring us, and they said that, yeah, Red Rock actually wants you to go to the negotiating table because they're actually on our side. So this is how they think. The Russians, they try to make to spread disinformation. The Russians are very good at that. I can go on and on about elections, but let's not go there. This is just a 30-minute talk. Okay. So um, what I want to emphasize is normally our infrastructure looks like this. We have front ends facing the internet. We have application servers in DMZ networks, and our most sensitive data are right inside, and we protect that from the public. What's not taken into consideration sometimes is that why do attackers have to go through the front door when they could just have a deal with someone inside, tell that somebody inside, one of these three things. They can just give a USB drive with malware. This has happened. We have another case uh, of an insider threat where this happened. Clicking a URL. The thing about clicking a URL is that they could deny. They could say, ganun ba sir? Yung pag-click ko, na-hack kayo? Di ko alam eh, na-click ko lang to eh, sa phishing. They could deny. It's very easy for a person to deny they did anything wrong. Now, if the company has bigger controls, they could send a file via email for them to open, and then it's easy for them to deny that they knew they were doing anything wrong. So once that happens, you basically skip the front door, you go through the back door, and like that other company I mentioned, you spread all around. Okay? All right. Now let's go to a third use case. Now, we do get personal requests from time to time. For me, these are a bit harder hitting uh, because when you work with large companies, at the end of the day, um, the impact to individual people is less abstracted because you're working with large companies. But when you have people coming to you and basically crying, saying that their life savings has been erased, or stories wherein someone who approached me, her grandfather went to the emergency room, had a mild stroke because his life savings of 8 million pesos was scammed away. Sometimes we get requests like that, and they're not very easy to deal with. In this case, this is uh, this was a case where there was a famous celebrity here in the Philippines. Let's call her Celebrity A. What's weird is that while they are used to bashers and trolls and haters, this stalker was very strange, very dangerous, I might add. It seemed like this stalker knew very private information about the celebrity, doctor checkups to very sensitive medical consultations. Alam niya, very close, uh, very close guarded secret meetings in a certain country club. Alam niya nung stalker. So they needed help. And um, okay, I'm gonna be careful because I know this is recorded. In fact, the next slide here are local public communications asked me to take away because there's a lot of sensitive information here. But basically, we work with the lawyer of the celebrity's talent organization. We were able to correlate information from different Instagram and Twitter accounts. we figured that it was this certain person who's likely the owner. And we were able to correlate things like possible names, possible addresses, where this person went to school. And we did all of that. And eventually, we were able to provide lawyers undeniable proof of who the lawyer was. So there's a lot more interesting things here. Unfortunately, our corpcom figured it was quite sensitive, but this is what I want everyone to take away from this slide. If we, a legit company, can do this with the approval of lawyers, and by the way, the stalker was eventually brought to court, and I believe they won the case against the stalker. Okay, so everything was done with the consult of legal. My point being is, we were restricted by legal means. Attackers, if they want to know who you are, they don't have that restriction. They can do whatever we did to you, all right? And they can weaponize that. They can weaponize that into things that lead into scams, okay? So that's the main takeaway on this slide. All right. Okay, now, for the tech people here, I think you might find this pretty interesting. So fortunately, we were called when ransomware was not spread all over the organization yet, but they saw signs and they called us for help. What happened was that we figured out there were already a compromised server, at least one. It seemed to be talking to corporate servers. We noticed, so when we did our forensics, so basically for the tech people here, we did a live memory acquisition and a triage. And we noticed a PowerShell command being run with the payload encoded in base64. So you would agree this is highly, highly unusual. So for those who are not tech here, PowerShell is basically a very powerful toolkit where you could input commands on Windows and make it do essentially whatever you want. All right. So in this case, normally you could see what the PowerShell script is doing, but in this case, it was encoded. We also noticed that it has a lot of traffic to an AWS S3 bucket. So what we did was we took a closer look at that PowerShell command. So this is the entire command. We decrypted it. All of this encoded command, we decrypted, and it turned out to be this. So I'm not going to explain this in detail, but it's actually a PowerShell command that's connecting using an AWS key. It's connecting to an AWS bucket. There's a secret as well, so that's your credentials. And the name of the bucket was here. So I'm not going to put the name of the S3 bucket. What we did was we reused these credentials and we entered that bucket itself. And lo and behold, right then and there, the attacker was copying all the data from the servers to that S3 bucket. It was a bit hard. It took us a bit of time for us to recognize that this was not legit because this really gave it away, the base64, but we were on the spot. It was 4 a.m. and we had to make a decision. Our decision internally was that this is encrypted. There is no way that this is the client. This is what we did. We went to the bucket and we decided to destroy everything. We were already in the attacker's bucket. Oh, and we did not just see that client's data. We saw other organization data. So we copied it all and sold it to the dark web. No, just kidding. No, we made sure that if we delete it, it could not be recovered. So that's the number one thing. We wanted to find out if there was replication. So take note, this was like 4 a.m. We're banking on the fact that uh, the company will not complain if we delete it because it's already happening in real time. There's no time anymore to call the company. Oh, by the way, we found this. We decided, no, let's do this. So We disabled all replication. After doing that, we got this error that there was no more replication, and we deleted everything. After after we did, so you can see this RM command here. So after we deleted everything, we destroyed the bucket itself. Um, our joke was that we wanted to leave the bucket online and leave one single picture with us going, oh, never mind, I can't do that here, it's recorded. But but yeah. So basically that's what happened for this case. And the company was very grateful. They did know that this is actually beyond the scope, guys, of an IR facility. You're not supposed to counter attack and destroy the attacker's files. But we had to make that decision on the spot. Okay, I think we have enough time. So just a final mix of insights. So again, this is just a bit, right? So these are the sort of stories that you usually would want, that usually do not want to share outside your organization. We made everything as shareable as possible by censoring what we can. But the essence of these insights are what I want to come across to you. Some things that didn't fit in is here. This is what we've noticed. Backups, they're always the number one thing targeted by ransomware groups. They will go to extreme lengths to find and destroy your backups because that's your key, because that is their key to being paid. If you put ransomware to all their servers and you take away their backups, tali na yung kamay nila. They will want to pay. Okay? Now, we've seen so many creative ways on how to counter this. Kasi normally when people put up backups, the backups are right next to the production servers because if there's an earthquake, ma-up ulit yung backup. Fine, we get that. But that's not that's not what you want to have during a cyber attack. Okay. It's nice to have readily available backups if there are earthquakes, etc. But what's more realistic? Magnitude 8 earthquake or atakin kayo ng ransomware group? Mas realistic na atakin kayo ng ransomware group. And when that happens, you don't want that to be available when they go into your system. So, nakakatawa dito, guys. Grabe, we have to be very creative. May isang time no na nasira lahat ng backups, but we discovered that the POS system of that organization still had product data kasi POS system eh. And the POS system was not part of the main IT network. So very creative yung ginawa. On the spot, gumawa ng scripts to retrieve business-related data from their POS system so that they can continue their service. Ayun, galing nun. In one case, yung pinaka-backup ng isang very large company na data corruption siya. Sinira ng mga attackers. Now, okay, without giving the specifics, at that time, we found out, so we worked with a lot of people. We discovered there were only 2 people in the Philippines who were familiar with that backup platform. It's very complicated. And not just familiar, marunong sila mag-recover ng corrupted data. 75% chance daw, pero marunong. Ang isa hindi ma-reach. Ang isa na-reach, pero buntis siya. So, ang ginawa, since pandemic siya, so talagang she was treated like a queen. Talagang sinundo siya ng mga company, gano'n. Pinadala. I don't know how much they paid her, pero inayos. Okay, so we have stories like that. Now, one more thing we notice is that for attackers, minsan kasi, pag na-ransomware yung company, it doesn't mean that they just came there. They just hacked into you. Minsan they were there for a long while. Pero when they notice that this company is starting to add antivirus, EDR, etc., doon na sila gagalaw. We've seen this several times. Okay? We've seen their commands as well where they will continuously search the organizations for computers na wala pang antivirus or EDR. They will use PowerShell to do that. And then, yun naman ang ilalagyan nila ng mga backdoor. Yun. And finally, this is very real. So um, many cases, these are experienced for the first time for management or IT people. Na uh, in one case, tinawagan ang CIO. The Russians called the CIO and said, uh, I, I forgot how that line went. But so the Russian said, I have all your data. This is proof. This is your residential address. This is the name of your wife. Nararate talaga niya to the CIO para pa-proof talaga na nakuha ang lahat ng data from that company. So you have that. Literally, we've seen people cry in front of the desk kasi hindi daw nila talaga kaya. Ilan araw na nakapuyat, pero hindi pa rin. We cannot stop trying to defend. So what I want to say here is, I feel that IT people are modern heroes in capes. Your IT support people, your database administrators, network administrators, what they do during things like these are not actually understood fully by by non-tech or management, di ba? But and they know that. These IT people know that. And yet they do this. Yet chinatsaga pag may IR. So that's what I want to leave. Heads up to a shout out to all IT people here. I know we know what you're going through. Keep up the good work, and I guess that's it for the talk. So yeah, thank you. Ay, ba ako? Yun pala nakamute pala all the while, no? Hello.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul, for
Oh,
that
okay, good,
very
good.
insightful lecture. True enough, knowing about and being aware of the current cybersecurity incident is of paramount importance for individuals, organizations, and society as a whole. Cybersecurity is an ever evolving field, and being aware of the latest threats and incident is a fundamental aspect of maintaining security in this digital age. So, all right, before we proceed with the Q&A, let me remind everyone that we will be having our last episode next week with a topic in AI, machine learning. So, we believe that you will still be with us to learn and be aware until the last episode of our 2023 SECSee Learning series. Now, let's read and answer the questions from our viewers. So, we have one question. Is having a cloud backup now more preferred?
Um, okay. So for I use cloud backups. Okay, so now the thinking there is if you have something very vital, very valuable, use the cloud. It's supposed to be encrypted at storage. Yes, the cloud provider typically would have the private key. So you could go to the extent of encrypting your files locally and then updating to then putting it to the cloud. Beware though, isa pang tidbit. So there's this one company na lahat ng production service nila live. There is this Azure technology where lahat ng production nyo na Microsoft server nakasync sa Azure instances kahit offline yung Azure instances. Real-time yung update. So cloud, backup siya. Pero yung na-ransomware ang lahat ng production servers niya, lahat yun na-sync to the cloud. So you want some backups that are isolated in some way as well. Okay? Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you, Paul. So, we don't have much question, and I think we can still have or accommodate some. So, if the viewers have um, their questions, you can actually put them on the Q&A.
Yeah, kahit ilagay niyo lang sa chat.
Okay, so we have one question. What is your take or insight you can share regarding the recent cyber incident right now in the Philippines?
Recent? Okay. So you mean the PhilHealth, the PSA? Yeah, okay. Um, all right. I would, okay. I don't like generalizing, but and I'm not going to single out a particular company, but if you're asking me what is a common trend of a lot of organizations that have been hacked, I'd say there's this uh, architecture. I guess that would be a clear way. Um, the Philippines is one of those companies where we basically skipped a generation. The US, for example, they started from dial-up, they worked their way up to basic web, and then now APIs tayo, nagkaroon ng internet, and basically we jumped all the way to online services, online API. So that's where we put all our focus on. But we missed that step where there was emphasis there is emphasis to be placed on creating a secure infrastructure. Akala lang natin, for most companies, their idea of IT security is a firewall. Their idea of security is anything you could buy, that's it. That's not true. There are three things in IT security. That's people, processes, and technology. Technology is actually the least important of the three. Kung may people can processes, babawi yung gaps mo sa technology. I can assure you that. Okay? So, balik na dito. Ang technology, ang focus, walang tao. Yun. Okay, I think there's a question from Mr. Kenneth. Um, Google Drive. Okay, I'm gonna work up the top. So there's a question you're saying, is Google Drive sharing safe? Okay. Um, my issue with Google Drive is it's very hard to not really hard, but it's difficult to track very closely who it's being shared to. All right, so that's something to keep in mind with Google Drive. Um, uh, if you're talking about whether Google Drive can be hacked, etc., well, that depends on the users. Okay, we do. Hold on, if you guys give me a minute. Okay, I want to talk about YubiKey because okay, here we go. So if you guys are not, I give you stocks on these devices. Yeah, there we go. So these devices, you can see that this is a USB-C side and a Lightning side. So these can actually serve as an OTP. That's very difficult to defeat. Wag nyo isipin na porket may OTP kayo sa SMS and yung Google Auth or MS Auth, hindi ka ma-fish. No. Our company, we do a lot of phishing exercises to other companies. Kahit naka MFA or OTP yan, mahak pa rin yan. Mananakaw pa rin yung OTP. This, however, is practically it practically cannot be defeated. You have to insert it to your device, kaya nga may Lightning and USB-C, para alam na alam talaga yung service na ikaw yun. Yun. So, that's what you need to, ano. Um, uh, Jonathan Gumtang. Sorry, are you the Jonathan, my former classmate in Ateneo? Probably. Okay, sorry. Anyway, should we learn how to become... Oh, nice. Okay, see Gumi, nice to see you again, bro. So Gumi was is one of my former classmates in Ateneo. So the question here is, should we learn how to become hackers to counter them? Kind of. Okay, hacking by itself is not bad because what hacking means is you try to learn what computer weaknesses are. Everything is software. Tao ang gumagawa ng software. Natural may problema. Hacking is basically finding out what those problems are and how they can be exploited. You could do that for good. Okay, and that's what I feel. Siyempre, minsan nakikita mo yung mga criminal hackers and nakikita mo, wow, naka $40 million siya. Am I still on the right side? No, joke lang. pero there is that. You have to pick a side eventually, but the techniques are basically the same. Yes. Sorry, kay Mary Grace, what do you suggest? Okay, ito. Maganda yung question ni Mary Grace. Um, importante itong yung okay, again, one of the things that attackers do when they compromise email accounts is that they put forwarding rules. For companies that we consult for, or our own companies under our SOC lines, we tell them, lagyan kayo ng alert rule na that will trigger an alert kung may forwarding rule na nakalagay to a non-email address in your organization. That will catch it. Most of those things that will catch it. Okay. Now for your personal accounts, um, you just have to check this from time to time. Prevention is really the best way rather than reaching this point. Kasi ang ibig sabihin, if they were able to do this, may ginawa na sila. Nababasa na nila buong inbox mo. Ayun. Hi, Ma'am Charm. So, Ma'am Charm has a question. With society reliant on denial, yes, this is true. Um, denial of service attacks are still in the game. There are still threat actors who do a denial of service attack and say, pay us or we will stop. However, masasabi ko na it's not anymore as, I guess, the attackers, they felt that the chance for them getting paid from that is not as high as ransomware. Iba talagang ransomware. You cannot do anything if they affected your entire infrastructure.
Yes, Sir
Sige.
Paul. I think we also have questions from the Q&A panel. So one
Dami
question
pala.
here is, yeah, it's okay. One question I have here is, field health was attacked. What should I do to protect myself?
Okay. The biggest the one on top of my mind is susceptibility to phishing and scamming and phishing attacks. Here's the thing. Phishing, I keep on I keep on repeating this with companies we consult for, pero phishing is primarily a psychological attack. It's not a technical attack. They are trying to get into your mind to click on something. Yes, technical controls will help, but the most effective control for psychological attacks is mental preparation. So you have to understand that if you get a message saying, if I get a message saying, ay Paul, pare, ito si ano, remember that time na ganito? Di ba, ano, yung driver's license mo pala, it will be expired here, ganon. Uh, you could update it in this link. Kahit sobrang personalized, kahit sobrang contextualized, still beware. Because remember, my example kanina, we were able to bring someone to trial, okay, by knowing many, many personal things about that person. Okay. Hampered pa kami sa legal restrictions. Scammers pa kaya there who are not hampered with this data from PhilHealth. Ayun.
Yeah, we have another one, Sir Paul. Can you recommend a ransomware blocker of such?
Okay,
Are there any innovation which are developing blockers so that we could somehow rely on those apps, if there are any?
sige. But okay, so basically ransomware is a payload. It's how do you explain this? Um okay, the way attacks work is that there is an exploit. Okay. Attackers will try to use an exploit. What is an exploit? Long story short, an exploit will make your computer do something it was not supposed to do or it was not intended to be doing. So once gagana ang exploit, ang next step niyan is ipaparun ng payload. Make make this computer, okay, sample, itong Zoom meeting na to. Zoom is intended for communication. Pero let's say may exploit for Zoom. I will make your Zoom program running now on this computer do something it was never intended to do. And what do we want it to do? Yan yung payload. So I can make Zoom run ransomware. Yun. So the blocker is to update all your software. Make it so that they don't have something exploitable. Yun yung pinaka-blocker. Yung sinasabing ng antivirus or EDR, we need that too. But you have to understand that's after the fact. It will detect the payload itself. But the real cause of the problem are those vulnerabilities, those weaknesses in programs that exploits try to target. Okay?
Okay.
Sorry, parang
So
familiar din yung names. Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
we have
Okay.
another
All right.
question, Sir Paul, and not
Okay.
being biased, but I really like this question. After your talk, I realized that indeed IT are heroes without capes. Thank you for your shout out to them. As an IT yourself, how can we non-IT people show better appreciation to our IT people?
Uh that's a very nice and very that's a very nice question. Um okay, you know what? Let maybe to give you context, this is probably the first time I've heard this question. And maybe that itself is the answer. Parang um recognition in some way. Because really, this is the first time I've asked I've heard this question out of so many talks. So I guess that there are, not all the time, but there are cases usually where because IT is not very well understood, if a company gets hacked, the people to blame is IT. Ang hindi nakikita was for the years preceding it, IT said, "Sir, we need budget for security. Sir, we need budget for this antivirus. Sir, we need yung Windows XP namin na server. Sir, kailangan na gagawin Windows 11, Windows XP pa no. Pero that's not a joke. Meron talagang ganun. Tapos pagdating ng sabog, sino ang pupuntahan? It's IT. So, I guess kailangan lang in uh, uh, maybe not fully understand what they do, but basically uh, they're on our side. They have constraints usually out of their hands, and ayun, basically it's that. Just to share, no. Think, okay, I do incident response. Uh, my I for years now, the way I sleep is under my pillow. My two cell phones are under my pillow. Okay. Uh, kung naka-silent mode, ina-allow pa rin ng specific individuals. So that happens. Matututo ka, you get waken up 5 a.m. Paul, may ransomware coming, and that's when you move. So there are people, IT people are like that too. Not just for IR, for database as well, for internet connectivity. No, no, no.
Okay, I think we can still accommodate Sir Paul now. Um, we have another question. Your thoughts on the GCash statement about hindi nawala ang pera nyo, binalik namin. Is GCash being hacked or
uh,
is it a system glitch?
okay, I sorry, I cannot comment on Gcash. so, sorry.
I
Yeah,
think it's okay.
yeah.
One question here, Sir Paul, is any learning or training related to hacking, cyber protection, or certification that you can recommend?
Oh, okay. You know what? For that, we get that question a lot, but the answer is very comprehensive. What we can do is we can probably send it through email, and maybe that could be sent out. But I highly, but I will say though that if you've heard of the SANS Institute, SANS, that is practically the institute that changed a lot of our lives here in Red Rock IT Security. Um, this is the first major training we got from, and they're the world's forefront in IT security. Mahal lang siya. It's like 6,000 to $7,000. Actually, dati nga, we wanted everyone in our company to have at least one. But if you're serious about IT security, they're really the best. So SANS Institute. Sorry, my question din dito on how to browse safely on the dark web. Um, if you mean safe by hindi ka mahuli, the purpose of the dark web is that um, sorry, my teacher. my teacher instinct is coming up. But I'm wondering if people know what the dark web exactly is. Do you guys want 2 minutes on that?
Sure, Sir Paul.
Sige. So um, it's actually a layman's term for a network. Okay, a network that can only be accessible through multiple layers of encryption. Okay, so hindi it's built in such a way so that hindi malalaman kung sino ka. Okay, so anonymity talaga yung benefit niya. Uh, it's so the software you need is a Tor browser, capital Tor. Okay, that stands for the Onion router. Okay, so try to look at Tor, Tor, kahit in Wikimedia. So yun talaga yung ano niya, ang software niya. You download a browser uh, to access the Tor network, the Tor network. Yun. Somehow along the way, they called it dark web kasi parang it became a place where people can put up marketing sites or sell stuff kasi totally anonymous siya. Yun. So if you're asking if you're safe browsing there, well, you're safe from prying eyes, definitely. But the precautions you need to take in normal web browsing should still apply because there could still be some uh, websites serving malware. So, okay, there's a question, Sandbox VM and VPN and Tor. Kahit Sandbox VM and then Tor, medyo redundant na yung VPN and Tor kasi ang dami ng encryption to access that Tor network. Okay? In fact, that's the reason why we don't like downloading from ransomware sites sa Tor network kasi ang bagal niya. Pa, kasi ilan layers yun of encryption. Okay, ayun. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So through the interest of time, I think we have to end our Q&A. And yeah, at this juncture, we'll be awarding the virtual certificate to our speaker.
Meron ba? Oh, okay. Sige.
Yes. So kindly present the virtual certification. Okay, so maybe I could just read it. The certificate of appreciation is awarded for knowledge and insight to 2023 in Avoid the SECSee Learning Episode 3, entitled Cybersecurity Incidents in the Philippines over the past 3 years. Signed, given this 13th of October 2023, signed Charmaine Valmonte, Chief Information Security Officer, Avoid the Security Ventures Incorporated. Okay. So I think we also have a QR code for our feedback because your feedback is always a gift, and we would really like if you can give us your feedback. Okay. So yeah, be sure to leave us your feedback by scanning the QR flash on your screens, and we would thank you in advance for giving us your feedback. All right. As our learning session for today ends, we once again thank you, Paul, for sharing your knowledge and your valuable time with us. And to our partners and viewers, see you again next week for the third and final webinar of the 2023 SECSee Learning Series. It's been a pleasure to be with you in this learning session. Thank you for watching our episode 3 of 2023 SECSee, Empowering the Digital Resilience, Safeguarding the Future. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.